Our top story at this hour: undeterred by the bloodiest day of protests on Friday when 2 demonstrators were gunned down, the opponents of the military coup in Myanmar have called for a nationwide strike today. The call for a general strike was made on Sunday by the Civil Disobedience Movement, a group leading resistance to the army's takeover. This call for general strike has prompted a response from the Myanmar junta. The military has come forward to issue a thinly veiled threat to use lethal force if the protests continue. Another part of the statement blamed protesters for inciting violence and justified the military action against them. The state television broadcaster MRTV late carried this public announcement from the junta, which is now formally called the State Administration Council. The announcement sounded more like a stern warning to curb dissent. Meanwhile, a large crowd has gathered again at the Hledan Center in Yangon, with protesters carrying photos of detained leader Aung San Suu Kyi and demonstrating, chanting and raising slogans against the military. Tens of thousands of people marched in Dawei in southern Myanmar on Monday, answering a call for a general strike. The day of 22nd February holds significance for a country which considers some dates auspicious. Protesters have compared this day to demonstrations on August 8 in 1988, when a previous generation staged anti-military protests which were bloodily suppressed. Angered with the use of force by the police, hundreds gathered outside the US Embassy in Yangon to hold a candlelight vigil for those who lost their lives during these demonstrations. A funeral was held for the 20-year-old girl who was shot in the head by the police while the police was trying to quell the protests. Crowds packed into a crematorium in the capital, Naypyidaw, as mourners carried in the coffin containing her body. When her body was released, a long motorized procession began a drive to the cemetery. International condemnation is increasing for the military seizure in Myanmar and the use of force and violence by authorities. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken took to Twitter to state that the United States would continue to take firm action against authorities violently cracking down on opponents of the military coup in Myanmar. The post comes 10 days after the United States imposed sanctions on Myanmar's acting president and several other military officers. In the aftermath of the violence that took place on Saturday, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the use of lethal force in Myanmar after security forces opened fire on protesters in Mandalay and killed 2 people. He added that the use of lethal force, intimidation and harassment against peaceful demonstrators is unacceptable. Meanwhile, in a sweeping move and in a huge blow to the military, the Facebook handle operated by them to send out orders to the general public has now been suspended by Facebook. Facebook deleted the main page of the Myanmar military under its standards prohibiting the incitement of violence.
In line with our global policies, we've removed the Tatmadaw True News Information team page from Facebook for repeated violations of our community standards prohibiting incitement of violence and coordinating harm.